Welcome to the support and resistance module. Now, support and resistance, it is the hallmark of trading. It's something that you'll use every single day that you trade. All right, so understanding these concepts are very important to your success as a trader. Let's get into it. We'll start with support. It is the level at which demand is strong enough to stop the stock from falling any further. At support levels, a bounce to the upside is likely. It is a level at which you will look to buy call option contracts because price has a good chance to go to the upside. We identify these levels on a stock's chart, but we look back historically to see and find levels at which price action touched the level multiple times. So that is how we identify support levels on the stock's chart. So in this example, I want you to think of support like a trampoline. Let's say you have your trampoline here. You're on the trampoline, and each time you jump into the air, you come back down to that trampoline, and what do? You pop back up into the air each time you hit that trampoline. So support acts just like a trampoline, okay? Now let's talk about resistance. It is the level at which supply is strong enough to stop the stock from moving any higher. All right, so at resistance levels, a bounce to the downside is likely. And in this case, you would look to buy put option contracts. Same thing, we identify these levels on a stock's chart and we look back historically to find levels at which price action touches a resistance level multiple times. So let's use the roller coaster for an example. If you ride roller coasters, I don't, but if you do, you know that as you go up that hill and you reach the top, the roller coaster's peak, when you get there, what happens? You shoot down, right? So resistance is like being at the top of the peak of a roller coaster. All right, so let's get into some chart examples so you can see how it really looks. So we have the chart here for McDonald's. And now this is the daily chart. So each candle you see here represents 1 day of trading. So if we start on the left, you see this white line that I drew, and then we have a lower white line. So let's start with this upper white line. The price action came to this upper white line and got rejected back to the downside here. It came back up to the white line and was rejected again. So at that point, we can see that there's some resistance at this level. All right, now we come down here. Then we had a touch at the bottom. Price action went back up right here, came back down and almost touched this lower white line again, went back up and almost touched it again right here. So this level here is a support level because price action is not able to break below this lower white line. But then as you see here, price action shot up and it broke through the upper white line. So now we're back up here again at the very top. We come back down and price action bounces back to the upside off of this upper white line right here. So now where this upper white line was resistance, now this upper white line has become support because price action bounced back to the upside. Here it comes back down, it bounces up again, so it's another level of support that's formed right here on this same white line. We come back through the white line, back up through the white line, and then we come down below it and it touches, with this candle right here, it touches the white line and then it shoots to the downside. So this touch right here reestablished this line as resistance because price action went back to the downside. And then over here on the far right, it went back up, went through the white line, then it comes back down to touch the white line again, and then it goes to the upside. So this touch right here on the far right reestablishes the upper white line as a support level. So as you can see, the same line can flip from resistance to support back to resistance and vice versa. All right, so support and resistance. Another example for Lululemon. On the far left, we have support. So price action goes to the upside. It comes back down to touch this level. It goes up, comes back down. It breaks through the white line just a little bit, but you see it shoots back to the upside. So at this point, we are viewing this line as a level of support. And then also it comes back down to touch the white line again, and then it goes to the upside even higher. So this is really confirmed at this point as a level of support. So we come back down in price, through the white line, back up through the white line, and then back down through the white line. So at this point, we're down here below it. We move to the upside and we get rejected. So now we're looking at this line as resistance, but it breaks through it and then goes back down. All right, so now we're back below the white line again, and look at what happens. The price action comes back to the white line and gets rejected, a strong rejection. So now we view this white line as resistance, a certified level of resistance, because we have two touches. All right, we want to see two or more touches. The more touches, the more valid the level becomes. And then look at all of this price action right here. It was rejected from this white line multiple times back to the downside. So now it becomes a strong level of resistance. But over here on the far right, we break above the white line finally, come back down to touch the white line, and then we shoot back to the upside right here on the far right. And that reestablishes this level as support. So it started off as support, it turned into resistance, and then went back to support, the same white line. All right, so are you kind of understanding how support and resistance works? All right, I hope so. But we got some more examples, so no problem if you're not. This is Walmart's chart. Let's look on the far left. Price action comes up to this white line and it gets rejected. We're below the white line, we come back up to the white line, and then we get rejected about 3-4 times right here. The same white line, we get a rejection back to the downside. But here we push back through the white line, and now we're above it. And look at all these touches above the white line. Now the line is holding up as support. Price action goes to the upside, comes down, goes back up, comes back down here, and you see this wick. So it wicked through the white line, but was reclaimed, and price action shot back to the upside here. So now this level is still viewed as support. Then price comes back down, touches here, and touches here. So the line is still viewed as support. But as you see on the far right here, we are below the white line. So at this point, you need to see, well, hey, is it going to be rejected? And will this line turn into resistance? Or will price action be able to break back above this level, come back down to form support? We have to wait to see. We don't ever want to assume what's going to happen until it happens. We want to play it safe. Okay, this is Boeing's chart. On the far left, you see we're below this line here, but price action has come up and it was rejected off of this white line. So now we are down here below this white line. But price action shoots up above the white line, and then we spend a lot of time above the white line. But right here, we finally come back down and we bounce off of this white line back to the upside right here. So at this point, we can view this as a level of support. All right, but again, we want to see more than one touch. So that's why you have price action go through this level back below the white line, but then it comes back up to the white line and it gets rejected. So at this point, this white line is a stronger resistance level because we have multiple touches. But then it comes down, goes back to rise above the white line. We get a few touches right here to form support, and we move to the upside. So by the time we get all the way over here to the far right, we have it kind of 50-50. So it's a good solid line. We have support and resistance. But on the far right, once we get right here, we can view this line as a good level of support at the moment until it breaks back below the white line, and then we can look for it to be possible resistance. All right. United States Steel Corporation. So now we have two lines going straight across. Let's start on the far left. This lower white line is acting as a level of support because we have multiple touches. Touch here, we go to the upside, we come back and touch this lower white line multiple times before rising up to this upper white line. We get a rejection here, we push back up through the white line, and then we shoot to the downside. So at this point, this upper white line is seen as a level of resistance. However, we want more touches to the line to validate it. So the price action comes down, it goes back up here, and it doesn't really get stopped above or below the line until we get back below the white line and get rejected to the downside twice. Now at this point, this upper white line is acting as a good level of resistance because we have multiple touches and multiple rejections. And then it's a strong rejection because you see after this touch here, the price action really shot back to the downside. All right, but what it ended up doing was it also crashed through the lower white line and then came back up to touch it, right? So now the lower white line, we can view this as a level of resistance. If we look over here on the left, it started out as support, the lower white line. So coming over here to the right, we're below the lower white line, we're below it. We come back up to it and we break through the lower white line. So now we're above the lower white line and we have multiple touches above it. So now the lower white line has become support again. We spend some time above it and then we shoot back to the upper white line. And then we get a big rejection right here. So now the upper white line is looked at as resistance. And then what happens? We come right back down to the lower white line and we get a bounce to the upside right here. So the lower white line is still holding up as support. So as you can see, the same line, again, will go from support to resistance or from resistance to support. All right, the 3M company. Let's start on the left. The price action came down to the upper white line and bounced to the upside. So we can say, hey, maybe we have support here. But then it crashes through to the downside and then comes back up to that white line and gets rejected. So now we have some resistance here. We spend some time below the white line, we move through it to the upside, we move back through it to the downside, and then we come back up to the white line right here and we get a big rejection. So at this point, we are viewing this upper white line as a level of resistance. We come down here and then we get a few touches of support down here. Afterwards, we get a big move back to the upside, back to the upper white line. So we have a level of support at the bottom and we're viewing the upper white line at this point as a level of resistance. Now, I have this arrow pointing because when we get right here to the upper white line, we are not really sure what's going to happen. We don't know if this white line will continue to hold as a level of resistance, which will make price action move back to the downside, or will the price action move above the white line, come back down to retest it, and make a level of support. But we always want to wait for confirmation. We don't want to assume what's going to happen. We want to wait to see. So at this point, I wouldn't take a trade. I would wait to see what was going to happen. Okay, so again, wait to see what's going to happen before you place the trade. Recall what we talked about. If you recall, never be in a rush to make a trade. Patience. That was the first promise I asked you to make to yourself. So in this situation, we will be patient and we will wait to see what the price action was going to do. Moving right along. NVIDIA. Okay, so let's start on the left. The lower white line is resistance. Price action moves above the white line, comes down to it, and then moves back to the upside. So now this white line, the lower white line, is viewed as a possible level of strong support. But again, we always like to see multiple touches. We move above, we're above the white line here, we come back to this lower white line, price action bounces back to the upside again. So now this lower white line is viewed as a certified level of support. So we come up here, and then we're able to draw this white line because price action is rejected off of this area twice. Back to the downside, back to the lower white line, and price action moved back to the upside. It didn't quite touch it, but it came close enough. Then it comes back to the white line again and bounces back to the upside. So now this lower white line is really a good level of support. Once it gets back to the upper white line right here, we get what? A rejection. So the upper white line is really viewed as a good level of resistance. But again, look where we are right now. We don't know what's going to happen next. Will we get a rejection off of this upper white line and move back to the downside? Or will price action move above the upper white line and turn this upper white line into a level of support? Again, we want to wait to see what's going to happen. Okay? All right, let's look at this chart here. So, on the left, we have multiple levels of rejection on this upper white line. A level of resistance has formed right here. Price action could not move above this upper white line. So this is viewed as a level of resistance. Price action comes to the downside, and then we have multiple touches right here on this line. So it is a level of support. But then we move to the upside through the upper white line, and we had a slight touch here of the upper white line. But then we come back down, and then we get a bounce to the upside off of the upper white line. So now we're viewing the upper white line as a level of support. All right. Now, on the far right, this is where we are right now, this candle. And same situation. We are not really sure what's going to happen, but if you recall, we talked about the hammer or the pin bar candle. And when I see these, I'm looking for price action to go to the upside, but again, we don't know for sure. All right, so I wouldn't try to guess and just buy calls right now. I would have to see a few more candles confirm that we're going to stay above this upper white line. And preferably if we get a break above it and then price action comes back down to it, we want to see a bounce. And then, and only then, will I maintain this as a level of support. But again, we can't call it just yet. All right. Let's take a look at this chart. Now here we have a bit more going on. We have 3 white lines. So on the left, we have a level of support on the lower white line here. We have resistance on the middle white line. So in this area, we have support and resistance. But now we're above the middle line in this area. Price action comes up here, comes back down to the middle white line, forming support. Then we move back to the upper white line and go through it, but then we come back down through it. We actually come back down through the middle line as well. We spend a little time above it, and then we come back down to the lower white line. All right, we almost touch it, but not quite. We move up, we come back down. So now we have the middle line as a possible level of support because we had a touch here, and then a touch here. Now with this touch, we had the strong push back to the upside. So after this happens, I'm viewing this middle line as a good level of support because we had the strong push to the upside off of it. So now we're up here. We're above the upper white line. The price action comes down and almost touches the white line. It moves back up, and then it crashes through the upper white line. But it comes back where? To that middle white line, which is like the strongest level of support at this time. Bounces to the upside. So at this point, we can really, and we can say this is a very strong level of support, this middle white line. But then here we come crashing through that white line, back to the lower white line, and we get 2 bounces off of that lower white line. So now the lower white line is new support. And then we go through it, back to the middle white line, and then we continue to move to the upside. So again, in this area, we really don't know what's going to happen next, and we have to wait for confirmation. Will it go above the white line up here? And will this upper white line become new support? Or will it come back down to this middle white line? And will this middle white line remain as support? Will it come lower? We don't know. But the key is to draw your levels. That's the most important thing here. Make sure that you're drawing your levels. All right. So now we have 3 lines, and let's start on the left. We have resistance and support. Then we go into this area. We have resistance and support. We get over here in the middle. We're above the upper white line, and we have some support forming. We get over here. We come down, but then we move back up to the upper white line and get a big rejection. So now we're viewing the upper white line as resistance. We come back down to the middle line with a touch here, almost a touch here, almost a touch here. All right, price action moves back to the upper white line. So that's now resistance, or it continues to be resistance. Then we come back to the downside and move through the middle white line. We get a rejection here, but then we come to the lower white line, and then we make some support down here. And afterwards, we move up to the middle white line, get a rejection. So now the middle white line is resistance. But then we move through the middle white line, and it appears that we're heading back to the upper white line. So again, we wait to see what's going to happen because we don't really know. Okay, Tesla. All right, so we have 3 white lines, and in this area we have some resistance and some support. Some support on the lower white line and some resistance in the middle white line. But then price action goes through all the way up here, and now we have this line forming. But this line was drawn right here, right? So we had some touches here, a touch here, 3 touches here. So that's what made this line form. and it acted as resistance. But we did spend some time above it. So it never really was support in this once we were above this upper white line. It was more of a level of resistance. But as you can see, we ended up coming back to the lower white line, forming some support at both of these lines actually, the middle line and the lower white line. We had some support going on here. All right, but yeah, as you can see, we got back to this area, we formed resistance, came back down to that lower white line, some support, we came up here, some resistance, then we move below the lower white line, and we spent a good amount of time down here. So now we come back up, the lower white line is now new resistance because you had multiple rejections right in this area. All right, then we finally move through the lower and the middle white line. Now we're up here, but then we come back down to the lower white line, and then we're forming support, and then over here on the right we're forming some more support at these the middle white line and the lower white line. Okay, so again, support and resistance is very important to be able to spot this on the chart, and all you need is 2 points to draw any line. All right, but we like to see more than 2 points. We want to see as many touches to a line or to a level as possible. The more touches we get to a certain level, the more valid that level becomes.